Welcome to another episode of the MMA Lock-Cast. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMA LOT. And this week we're going over UFC Fight Island 3, which is headlined by a banger of a middleweight fight between Robert Whittaker and Darren Till. Very excited for this fight. Very excited to see the Reaper come back. There were a couple of fights that he was scheduled for that he had to pull out of, Jared Cannonier being one of them. And I feel like this Darren Till fight is slightly more suited for him. I'm not sure how much he would have been able to handle the power of Jared Cannonier, but in this fight against Darren Till, it's a very winnable fight. It's a very good fight. It's currently lined around a pick'em, which makes it even more interesting from a betting perspective. And I can't wait to get into that matchup for you guys. There are a couple other good fights sprinkled out throughout the card. We got Shogun Rua versus Minotauro Nogueira 3. Why they're putting that fight together, no fucking clue. But we got Gustafsson making his heavyweight debut, which is very fun. We just don't know what mental capacity we're going to get Gustafsson in, considering this is him coming back from his retirement. And then a bunch of other great fights sprinkled out throughout the card. Carlos Esparza versus Michelle Rodriguez. Khamzat Chimaev making a quick turnaround to impress us once again. Tanner Boser versus Raphael Pessoa. Movsar Evloev versus Mike Grundy. That fight's getting a lot of coverage in terms of the betting perspective because a lot of people are high on Mike Grundy. Stay tuned to find out how I feel about that. But yeah, there's a lot of fun fights, and even Paul Craig against Khamzat and Gulov. Fun fight. I don't believe it's going to last that long, but I do believe that it will definitely produce fireworks and should be fun for as long as it lasts. But before we get into UFC Fight Island 3, let's go over my last event, which was a slight profitable night at UFC Fight Island 2. And let's just quickly go over it. We'll start off with the one loss, which was one of my Lock of the Night plays. This was a Lock of the Night play I made within an hour or two from the card starting, just because I saw it get into a more bettable range. I got Joseph Duffy 5 units at minus 284, and running everything on tape. I kind of took away the last fight from Joseph Duffy just due to hearing him in interviews talking about how he had lingering injuries going into that fight, and it was just really distracting him from the fight. And Mark Diakese, high-level fighter, so I can't really fault him too much for that. But pretty much in every aspect of this fight, I thought that Duffy had a really good shot to win this fight. On the feet, on the ground. Joel Alvarez obviously had skills off of his back and on the ground, but I thought that Duffy was going to be able to pretty much blow him out of the water there. And then off of a sloppy takedown, we get a guillotine victory for Joel Alvarez. So that one was very deflating. That was really tough to watch. But the rest of the card was a winner. You know what I mean? If I just stuck with the 3 plays that I made before that Duffy bet, it would have been a very, very good night of profit. But we only end up plus 0.09 units on the card. But let's quickly go over those last 3 bets. 0.75 unit dog of the night play on Brett Johns plus 185. Ton of value there. We've seen Maltel Jackson struggle in the past with strong grapplers and wrestlers, Ricky Simone being one of them, and Brett Johns just has that crazy pace where he's not going to let you off the hook, and it definitely showed in this fight against Jackson. I think Jackson has a ton of potential, but he still has a ton of work to do in terms of his takedown defense and just grappling defense in general. Also, we had 1.2 units on Ariane Lipski at minus 112 over Luana Carolina. A lot of people were just shitting on Lipski and just thinking that she's done, she's washed. She came into the UFC and really underperformed compared to what we expected her to do when she came into the UFC. And Luana Carolina, in my opinion, is just not at that level. She's not a good fighter. She's going out there and beating Priscilla Cachoeira in a decision fight, and she just didn't even look that good. It's just Cachoeira being a mobile punching bag. So I didn't really see what people were seeing in Carolina there. Cashed on Lipski plus 1.07 units. And then lastly, the actual Lock of the Night play that I just stuck with, under 4.5 units on the main event, Figueiredo versus Benavidez. Figueiredo makes it look easy, just goes out there, absolutely steamrolls Benavidez in that first round, and we cashed that minus 190 for plus 2.63 units. And again, plus 0.09 units on the event. I wish it was plus 5.09 units, but I had to take that shot on Duffy because he got into bettable range. I learned my lesson there, though. All right. Before we get into the breakdowns for this Fight Island 3 card, just remember you guys can get these breakdowns earlier as I record them, I drop them on my Patreon. So if you guys want to go support your boy, a measly $5 a month gets you these breakdowns way before the public. You guys get all my official plays too whenever I'm charging the public as well too. You guys get a best bets article that lays out every single best bet for every single fight, as well as the best prop bet for every fight too. That's something I'm adding starting this week. I feel like it could be very useful, and I know a lot of you have access to those like specific props that have good return if you take a little bit of a stab on them. So there's a ton on the Patreon that you guys are going to get, and some other things that I'm looking to add there as well, because that's slowly starting to grow. I'm kind of surprised at how much people are actually enjoying the early breakdowns. So yeah, check out the Patreon. I have everything in the description below, and it will be very greatly appreciated. The best thing you guys can do for me is hit subscribe on this channel, and then the second best thing is just to support your boy through Patreon, so I can do this on a more of a full-time basis. That's what I'm trying to aim towards. That's what I'm trying to work towards. I feel like my breakdowns are very helpful and very insightful, and even though sometimes I pick the wrong spots in terms of betting, more often than not, the other fights that I don't end up betting on have very good read. I have a very good read on them and a very good take on them, and it's been very helpful, which is why the numbers on the Patreon are slowly starting to grow. So I'm expecting to get that a little bit bigger. And again, I'm very, very grateful for everybody that's signing up for the Patreon and checking it out. It makes all this work worth it. All right, let's get into these breakdowns, and I hope you guys enjoy them. Nathaniel Wood versus John Castaneda. We got minus 525 on the prospect and plus 415 on Castaneda. Let's start off with Nathaniel Wood. He's coming off his first, I believe it's his first UFC loss, which snapped a pretty lengthy 2-4-6-8 win fight streak. But the loss comes to the hands of a UFC vet in John Dodson, who is just a quicker and faster puncher and a more powerful puncher as well too. Dodson, as old as he is, or as much experience as he's accrued in the UFC, and people thinking he's on a decline, he can still have impressive performances against guys that have striking defense difficulties, guys that are easier to hit. And then when you mix that with the extra power that Dodson is able to produce, it's usually a bad night for most of his opponents. But yeah, Nathaniel Wood was able to get it done within 16 seconds of that third round, and that set Wood back slightly. But here he is coming in again against a UFC newcomer. I think it's more so just him trying to get a fight in. Obviously, with this whole COVID thing going on, he was actually supposed to fight Umair Nurmagomedov, which was a very, very difficult fight. And you got to kind of applaud him for taking his first loss in the UFC and then going in and fighting a killer like Umair Nurmagomedov. Luckily for him, Umair pulls out. In steps John Castaneda, who, in my opinion, is kind of tailor-made for a guy like Nathaniel Wood. John Castaneda has a ton of experience, just as much as Nathaniel Wood, but he's a little bit more hittable. He seems to relax a little bit when he's being pressured, at least in terms of like moving back towards the cage, and that really opens up a lot of the shots for Nathaniel Wood, in my opinion. I think Wood is just better overall. He's the more technical striker. He moves better. He's going to be slightly longer. A ton more of a top level experience, or a higher level experience, I should say, for Wood. But yeah, I don't see anything special from John, and he's very hittable. Doesn't have the best striking defense. Nathaniel Wood is very versatile with his strikes. He throws a variety of strikes, and I think that's going to be a little bit too much for John here. However, at minus 525, I got to pass on this. Like I said, even though you have to applaud Nathaniel Wood for taking the Umair fight after his first UFC loss, you still got to consider what kind of mind frame he's going to be coming in. Is he going to be coming in for revenge, in terms of just trying to get back in there and trying to get a W and kind of putting himself in harm's way? Or is he going to be methodical and tactical about it, which is kind of what got him to the dance first and foremost? I expect it to be the latter, but you don't know what to expect. And minus 525, I'm not willing to pay that type of juice to find out. even in a parlay, I don't think it adds enough value that you should really worry about Nathaniel Wood here coming in and possibly shitting the bed. So I like Wood to win this fight by, I'm going to say 3rd round submission. I feel like he's just going to piece up Castaneda on the feet for about 2 rounds. Then we see a sloppy shot from Castaneda later in the fight, which pretty much sets up some sort of choke for Nathaniel Wood. So I like Wood to win this fight by 3rd round choke, but I think there's far too much juice at minus 525 on the prospect. Ramazan Emeev versus Niklas Stolze. Trying my best German accent out there. My wife is of German heritage and has a bunch of German family that I've met before, and I hope I made them proud with that one. But we got minus 425 with Ramazan Emeev, plus 340 for Stolze. Stolze is obviously making his UFC debut here, and he couldn't have a stiffer test as his first test in the UFC. Ramazan Emeev hasn't fought that much in the UFC, considering he made his UFC debut back in 2017 against Sam Alvey. I'll always remember that strictly due to the fact that I had Ramazan Emeev as the lock of the night play at plus money. That's when I was betting a little bit smaller of units, so I was able to actually get in on that opener. But yeah, we obviously know he went in there and picked apart Sam Alvey for 15 minutes, and that's what he's done to 3 of his last 4 opponents, all within the UFC. Alberto Mina, Sam Alvey, and Stefan Sekulic. And then most recently, he lost a fight in November to Anthony Rocco Martin, in a fight where Martin just showed off the power of calf kicks. He pretty much just tore up Emeev's front leg and was able to open up the rest of his game due to that. But outside of that, whenever Emeev fights anybody else that doesn't have such a calf kick heavy game plan, he's very efficient with his strikes. He's good with getting in and out and not really getting hit too much. I don't see that much from Niklas. Niklas doesn't seem like a guy that targets the calf as much. He's a pretty well-rounded striker, has decent jiu-jitsu as well too, but it's tough to really get a read on how good this kid is, or what his skill level really is, based on him not fighting UFC level competition. And man, is he getting UFC level competition in this first fight against Ramazan Emeev. I expect it to be a striking battle. I expect them to pretty much just trade on the feet, but I expect Ramazan to be the slightly more efficient fighter. Landing his 1-2s, landing a couple leg kicks, getting in and out. Niklas seems a little bit more of a wild and chaotic fighter. Not like fucking Michel Pereira type of fighter, but likes to throw spinning shit every now and then. This fight's just really, really tough for me to get a true read on. Even at the current lines, it just screams past to me minus 425 for Emeev. I wouldn't even bother parlaying him here because, again, we don't know exactly what we're going to expect or see from Stolze here. And he could go out there and look like a brilliant striker against Ramazan Emeev, who is, again, a little bit more tactical and calculated with his movements. And sometimes that may be a detriment to him in terms of getting the judges' scorecards. But when we see him on, he's really good at, hitting and not getting hit himself. This fight's a bit of a pass for me. What's the over-under? It's at 2.5. Yeah, minus 290 for the over 2.5. I could absolutely see that being the case here. So I'll go with Ramazan Emeev to win this fight by decision. But I don't see either value on anything on this fight, really. I think that we'll see a classic Ramazan Emeev performance here en route to a decision victory. Pannie Kianzad versus Bethe Correia. We got minus 155 on Kianzad and plus 135 on Bethe Correia. This fight has kind of been widening in odds as the time is going on. It opened up at a pick'em, and slowly we've seen a lot of money come in on Pannie Kianzad, and I can't blame them. Pannie Kianzad obviously going to have a 2-inch height advantage as well as a 2-inch reach advantage. And most recently, she won a decision victory over Jessica Rose Clark. With her being the slightly longer woman, in my opinion, the slightly more polished striker too, and probably the better overall fighter, I can absolutely understand why the line is moving towards the Kianzad side. If you guys have been watching me for a while, you guys know that I don't have much love for Bethe Correia, and it's nothing to do with her as a person or anything like that, but I just don't think that she's UFC level. And when she starts going out there and beating girls like Sijara Eubanks and Jessica Ai and stuff, it really makes you wonder, the level of competition within the women's MMA divisions in total. There was some normalcy return whenever she lost to girls like Holly Holm and Irene Aldana, but she was doing pretty well against Irene Aldana before she actually got finished there. Even Holly Holm, she was doing decently. She was, crashing forward, landing a couple shots, and then getting out of the way. But her technique, it just is so flawed. And it's just so hard to back a woman like her too. The only thing you can really bank on whenever you're betting Correia is the fact that she's not afraid of a firefight and she's willing to be the one that's pressuring forward. In this fight against Pannie, I could absolutely see her go out there and break Pannie. But there's something in my brain just blocking me from thinking that Bethe is actually going to win this fight. I fully expect Pannie to mix in, takedowns with a point fighting style on the feet, staying away from any of the big shots from Bethe, even though I don't believe Bethe has, much knockout power or anything like that. But that's pretty much the only way I see Bethe winning this fight, is if she just crashes forward and just, lands big shots, hurts Pannie maybe once around or something, and possibly gets the judge's scorecard at the end. But I truly believe it's going to be Pannie kind of mixing together an overall game. And, you got to say that Bethe has definitely faced a higher level of competition. And when she has faced a higher level of competition, she's come up short. Look at this stretch, goddamn. So since she had her title fight with Ronda Rousey in 2015, she's lost a split to Raquel Pennington, won a split over Jessica Ai, had a draw against Marion Renault, lost 2 fights to Holly Holm and Irene Aldana, and then just most recently beat Sijara Eubanks as a pretty hefty underdog too. Plus 240. That was very surprising for a lot of people. I still like Kianzad here. I'm going to take her to win this fight by decision, but minus 155. Like if I had started or studied this fight when it was like at minus 115, minus 120, I would consider it. But at minus 155, I just don't feel like there's enough value on Pannie here. Considering I still believe she's an average fighter. I'll go with Pannie here to win this fight by decision. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Bethe come out here and spring some sort of an upset. Raphael Pessoa versus Tanner Boser. We got minus 250 on Tanner Boser, plus 210 on Raphael Pessoa. The intriguing part of this is also that the over-under is at 2.5, with the over being minus 160 and the under being under 2.5 being plus 140. But this was a fight where I actually went into it thinking that, okay, Tanner Boser will probably be a lock of the night play. He's a very efficient fighter, throws great leg kicks, has solid cardio, moves very well for a heavyweight as well, and came off a very impressive knockout over Philippe Lins last time around. And, I don't. I'm not saying that the latter, like the last reasoning I just gave, is the main reason. I'm thinking that Tanner Boser was going to be a good play because, as we've seen, like with Molly McCann, Tyler Santos, there's a couple other fights that I can't think off the top of my head, but like the recency bias, you got to throw that shit out the window. You can't just strictly base what a fighter is going to look like based off of their last fight. You got to, put together a solid number of fights where you think like, okay, this person showed legitimate skill. They showed a certain tendency that I really like for a handful of fights, to be confident enough to be like, okay, they're probably going to go out there and implement this type of game plan. And that's kind of what I see with Raphael Pessoa, because pretty much everything that I explained as to why I like Tanner Boser is why I like Raphael Pessoa, which makes me think that this line should be much closer than it is. Plus 210 for Raphael Pessoa, in my opinion, is a little bit of a steal. I thought you would get maybe plus 140, max plus 150 on Raphael Pessoa. But man, he moves well for a heavyweight. He looks slightly more out of shape than Tanner Boser, but he moves just as well. Like it's crazy. His cardio seemed good too, especially when he went those 3 rounds against Jeff Hughes last time around. The fight before that, obviously, didn't go that long with Cyril Gane, but Tanner Boser is no Cyril Gane, and you can't use this whole MMA math thing where it's like Tanner Boser went 15 minutes with Cyril Gane. Pessoa couldn't even get out of the first with him. Completely different fights. You know what I mean? When you match these guys up, they're completely different fighters, completely different styles. But yeah, with Pessoa, I'm impressed with him. Again, I was going into this thinking that, all right, Tanner Boser is probably going to be the more efficient fighter. We'll probably leg kick this guy to death and then, follow up with a finish surrounding that. But he throws kicks just as well. He moves just as well. He's slightly taller. He's 6'3" compared to the 6'1". Let me just 6'2" of Tanner Boser. But he does also have a 2.5 reach advantage as well too. So that's something to keep in mind. The one thing here is also going to be if Tanner Boser is able to implement his leg kicks earlier and more often than Pessoa. But I think that Pessoa moves well enough to get out of most of those. He has a solid Muay Thai background as well too, so I think he'll be able to at least check some of the leg kicks coming his way and then dish them out himself. But yeah, plus 210 is a little bit ridiculous for a guy that shows solid skills. He's still only 31, so he's still only like entering his prime. He's getting better and better. He's 10-1 now. His only loss again being to Cyril Gane. He moves very well. There's just a lot of positives here that make me believe that this fight should be lined much closer, which is why I'm more than likely going to be taking a shot at Pessoa above plus 200. I'm probably going to throw maybe one unit around plus 205. Not 100% sure yet. I'm going to see where this line goes throughout the week. And then obviously, if you guys aren't watching this on the Patreon, and you're just watching it as like a public YouTube release on my normal podcast, you don't know if I actually made this pick or not for sure. We're on paid picks for this week, so you're gonna have to either hop on the Patreon or check out the website for the official plays for this card. But we're on a 3-event winning streak, so that's probably why. Will I play Pessoa for sure or not? Who knows? But I will take Pessoa to win this fight. I'll take him to win by decision. Tanner Boser is very, very durable. Obviously, again, he went the full 3 rounds of Gane. He's gone a full 3 and even 5 rounds in the past before. But I think that Pessoa will go out there and probably have a little bit more activity, a little bit more output, and get the judges' nod. And yeah, as a solid underdog, I don't see why you shouldn't put money on him here. Pessoa via decision. Movsar Evloev versus Mike Grundy, or as the Brazilian commentators in Mike Grundy's last fight before the UFC called him, Mike Gronge. I don't know why the fuck I find that so hilarious, but we got minus 195 on Movsar Evloev and plus 170 on Mike Gronge. This is going to be a very fun grappling fight. Both guys are predominantly grapplers, even though the last fight, both of them pretty much showed really good striking or decent striking, at least in Mike Grundy's case. He was able to land a beautiful shot on Nad Narimani back in March of last year, which was his last fight. And he rocked Narimani a couple times. He landed a perfect, like, right down the middle, right straight down the middle. And then I believe the punch that ended up rocking Narimani was a left hook. But, Narimani pretty much that entire fight was throwing winging hooks. It seemed like he just had, like, this right straight and left hook that he was always throwing back-to-back, kind of just blitzing Grundy and trying to land cleanly on him. And then for the duration of that fight, Mike Grundy was just, again, like landing that straight right down the middle, a little bit more crisp, right down the straight line, which was a little bit easier to reach the target than Narimani's winging hooks. And then obviously, if you watch Grundy's earlier fights or pretty much any other fight than the Narimani fight, he's a grapple heavy kind of guy. Like, he doesn't let you breathe. I think it was the 2014 Commonwealth wrestling bronze medalist or something like that. Let's just get this straight. Whether you medaled in the Olympics or whatever the fuck it is, a great wrestler is not technically a great MMA wrestler. And there are two different things. It's kind of like calling... it's like if you called all wrestlers pretty much the same level, all black belts the same. They're not. Within black belts, there are levels to themselves too. Like, you can't call, what's his face? Fucking Cub Swanson, but black belt, the same level of a Brian Ortega black belt, or like a Damian Maia black belt. There's so many different types of levels there. That's why I think the same thing here with Grundy and Evloev is. Evloev may not be as credentialed on like the Olympic scene as Grundy is, but I think that Evloev still has a better MMA wrestling game and a better chain wrestling game as well too. and a better ability to keep his opponents on the ground. And even if his opponents get back onto their feet, he does a really good job of getting back to that chain wrestling to get the opponents down. One thing that I really like to see from Evloev is, for most of his takedowns, there's power doubles. When his opponent, does have a solid sprawl or initially a solid sprawl, he does a really good job of cutting angles and like really flipping his opponents over to pretty much nullify the sprawl that's coming their way. Mike Grundy, on the other hand, I feel like he's more so of a one and done kind of guy. Like he shoots him for his takedowns. If he doesn't get them, he either gives up on them or he just starts clinching up against the cage. And Evloev is kind of guilty of that too, in terms of, if he fails on a takedown, but his opponent is up against the cage, he's going to ride them there. He's going to make it a living hell. He's going to, grab their back, and do whatever it is. But I do like Evloev's ability to take the back. He's pretty slick with it too, considering that he's not like a, not really known specifically for his jiu-jitsu, but more so known for his wrestling. But his back takes are very, very impressive. His hands have definitely gotten better too. Like I said, both of them shown improvements in their last fights with their striking. I think we saw a little bit more of a well-rounded approach and an improvement from Movsar with his striking. Mainly training over there at Tiger Muay Thai, getting in some rounds with Piotr Yan, and obviously all the other great striking coaches and training partners he has there. But that's obviously the weakest part of his game, and we've seen in his last fight that he's making improvements. Like he's fighting smarter. He's seeing the openings. Like when Enrique Barzola was just like, framing off of him in those close clinch situations, he was very cognizant of knowing to throw the uppercut right up the middle because that was open, and that was often something that he would pick up on that Barzola was using as a defensive tactic. I like Evloev, man. I like his cardio. I think his pace is going to be a little bit too much for Grundy. The consistent chain wrestling, the sticking on him as much as possible. I think if we're going takedown for takedown, Movsar probably hasn't beat here. Again, with the chain wrestling and the cardio, I think that's what separates the two. And again, the improvements that Evloev is making in his striking, I think, will allow him to kind of cruise away with the decision here, especially if this fight ends up, kind of being a stalemate in the wrestling. I think that we'll see Evloev with his activity and his movement and his output be way more than Grundy's. Like if we saw in the Narimani and Grundy fight, that was a little bit of Grundy landed a beautiful takedown in that fight, but that was primarily a striking fight because both those guys are primarily wrestlers. I think that Evloev does have the better wrestling out of those three, but if Grundy's not able to get his wrestling going, and if Evloev for some reason is not able to get his wrestling going, and it comes down strictly to the striking, I'd have to go with Evloev. Like Grundy is just more so like a one and done guy with his striking as well too, so that's a little bit of a concern. I don't understand the massive amount of love that Grundy is getting. Like, yeah, we did see Barzola get Evloev down, but that's not really the end of the world. Evloev or Barzola is a striker turned grappler, but he's such a strong grappler, and all those rounds he's getting over there at AKA was very much helpful for him too. I think Evloev is slowly growing into this featherweight division as well too. He came over from M1 as the M1 bantamweight champion. His last two fights in the UFC have been at featherweight, and I think he's slowly getting more comfortable at that weight class. And Grundy's a strong guy, but that's the thing. That's like at a certain point, the strength is going to start to fall off when Evloev's pace and pressure and consistent, just bullying pretty much starts to catch up with you. I think at the midway point of this fight, we'll start to see Grundy start to break and Evloev start to take over. The only concern here for Evloev would be like a Hail Mary punch or a meme KO as they call it for Grundy. Again, takedown for takedown. I got to take Evloev. I think he's always going to come out on top, even if Grundy gets him down. I think we'll see Evloev pretty much right back to his feet. We've seen that for Grundy. Sometimes he gets a little bit too desperate with his takedowns, and he allows his opponents to reverse him in those situations. And I don't think we've seen Grundy fight anybody with the level of wrestling that Evloev is going to bring. Closest thing we saw was Nad Narimani, and I would rate Evloev way higher than Narimani at this point in time. The kid's still young. He has a lot of room to grow still. He's 26 years old, 13 or 12-0 coming into this fight. Yeah, this is a great fight for him. Again, outside of a flash KO or anything like that from Grundy, I think Evloev takes his fight. No beans about it. I'm going to take him to win by decision. I wouldn't be surprised at a late finish either if like the pace and pressure really gets to Grundy. Maybe like a late choke or a overwhelming TKO ground and pound. But I do like Evloev here. I'm going to take him to win officially by decision. But again, wouldn't be surprised by a late finish. But yeah, I'd love to see what is in store for Movsar. Personally, I'd like to see him go back to bantamweight. I think he'd have a lot of success there. But I think he's a pretty good training partner of Petr Yan now, which might, obviously give us some issues. So maybe he just wants to go up there to at 145 and lay his claim there. But yeah, I got Evloev to win this fight by decision. Yeah, I really like him at this spot. And currently, even at the odds at minus 195, I think that's a bit of a steal. So I like Evloev here. I think he wins by decision, barring any freak KO or Hail Mary KO from the Grundy side. Jake Collier versus Tom Aspinall. We got minus 235 on the newcomer Aspinall, and we got plus 195 on the UFC vet Jake Collier. So let's start off with Collier. We haven't seen him that often. Since 2015, since 2016, he's only had 3 fights. He's been trading wins and losses for the majority of his UFC career. Currently on a 3-3 run in the UFC. Most recently coming off a victory over Marcel Fortuna back in November of 2017, which is a fight where we saw a lot of toughness, grit, and just a better cardio and gas tank than Marcel Fortuna. Collier has decent striking. He does a good job of, when he gets his opponents down, he does a good job of staying on top of them, controlling them, landing good enough shots, and staying active enough so the referee doesn't really stand them up or anything. Tom Aspinall, on the other hand, trains at the same gym as Darren Till. That's one of the bigger bodies that Darren Till uses, considering how big of a guy that guy is too. But Aspinall, most of his fights have been pretty quick finishes. Right now, since his last loss, he's only been in the cage for 3 minutes total. His last fight was 56 seconds. Before that, minute 21, which ended in a gruesome leg injury, kind of like Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman-esque. And then the fight before that, he finished the guy in a minute and 16 seconds. There's no tape on his Lucas Parabic fight from Bama 25, so that's kind of hard to find. Well, you can't find it at all. I think they didn't even tape the prelims for that card. But that one would have been very helpful to see, considering that's one of the 2 fights that Tom Aspinall has actually even been into the second round. So the question marks regarding his gas tanks or gas tank is still there, especially considering the one loss and footage that we actually have of him going into the second round against Stuart Austin at Bama 21. We see him have success on the feet, but pretty quickly Stuart Austin is able to get the takedown and make it a difficult night for Tom Aspinall. I was kind of impressed with what I saw with Aspinall off of his back. They said he was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, but there's, I guess, levels to brown belts, because in the second round you see Stuart Austin go out there and pull off a beautiful heel hook after reversing Aspinall from being on top of him. It didn't even seem like either Aspinall didn't have the gas tank, or Aspinall is not just a legitimate black or brown belt and didn't know how to defend a heel hook. If I know that was 5 years ago, and I'm sure he's gotten better from that, but it just leads me to believe that these guys at heavyweight don't really improve that much from fight to fight. He is 27 years old, so maybe he has, 5 years ago, he was 22 years old when he lost that. But I'm still questioning his cardio, until we see him truly tested. I believe that, he shouldn't be deserving of that minus 235 line that he's currently at. I'm sure he is skilled enough to beat Jake Collier here, but again, one of the big things that I really look at when going into betting fights is the cardio and gas tank, and knowing if your guy can go the full 15 minutes. And Jake Collier is quite durable. He can take a shot. The last time he lost was to Dong Yang by finish. Devin Clark went to a decision with him. And Vitor Miranda did finish him as well too, but in the fights that he stuck around and he did a lot of good damage. Marcel Fortuna, that was his most recent fight, and I think that's a good indication of what kind of fighter we're gonna get. That's another thing though. This is Collier's first fight up at heavyweight. He did start off his UFC career in the middleweight division, fought in light heavyweight for 2 fights, and now here he is, or I believe it was 3 fights. I think the Uda fight was at light heavyweight. No, sorry, that was middleweight. Devin Clark and Marcel Fortuna at light heavyweight, and now again he's coming back, and he's been off for an extended period of time. He got popped by USADA for a 10-month suspension of some sort, and then he was injured, or it might have been one or the other flipped around. But either way, he's been out for a while, but I think that this should still be a decent fight for him. I'm not buying the hype on Aspinall yet. I want to see him take out a guy like Jay Collier, preferably in the second or third round, just to kind of assert the fact that, he does have cardio. He's not just a first round robust type of guy, because according to his record, that's kind of what it looks like. And again, I like the cardio and grit that we saw from Collier in his Fortuna fight. And that's closing in on 3 years ago. But I think that, if he truly wasn't in it, he probably wouldn't come back. I like Collier here. I'm gonna go against the grain, and the only thing keeping me from betting him here at that plus 200ish line is that layoff. And again, there's so many question marks around Aspinall as well, where I just don't feel comfortable. Aspinall could absolutely go in there and just torch him in like a minute, but I'm more so expecting Collier to survive that, get this fight into the second round. I believe his takedowns are going to be there too, so I believe Collier will know that he'll have probably a bit of an advantage controlling this fight on the feet compared to just, standing and striking with Tom Aspinall. So I think Collier, better fight IQ, assuming better cardio, just based off that one fight that we have footage of Aspinall in the second round, I wasn't that impressed. And Collier has defended submissions pretty well too, so I believe even if he tries to control this fight on the ground, he'll be okay from Aspinall's possibly black belt now. I'm assuming, if he had his brown belt 5 years ago and he's still training, probably has his black belt by now. But regardless, I'm confident in Jay Collier's submission defense as well. So I'm going to take Collier by decision. I think there's a good chance he outlasts Aspinall, maybe a third round finish, but I'll go with the decision to be on the safe side. But and last thing, Tom Aspinall making his UFC debut. There's so many fighters that make their UFC debuts at this minus 230-ish type of range and then just absolutely shit the bed. Jeff Hughes in a rematch, and his second last fight being the same fighter, Maurice Green, he comes back into the UFC, fights Green again, and loses some fucking how. Ariane Lipsky against Joanne Calderwood. There's just so many instances where like a fighter comes in as a roughly minus 200 favorite and then shits the bed against a more tested and UFC higher experienced UFC veteran. So this is possibly another spot. I think that's exactly what we're going to see. So I think Collier is worth a bit of a shot, but just be cautious about the fact that he's been out of the cage for close to 3 years now. But I'll still go with Collier to win this fight by decision. Nicolas Dalby versus Jesse Ronson. We got minus 255 on Dalby, plus 215 on the returning body snatcher, Jesse Ronson. So if you guys remember Jesse Ronson, or if you have been fans long enough of the UFC, back in 2013, he was actually in the UFC. He came into the UFC with a 12 or 13-2 record, but he got probably the worst possible matchups you could possibly get. And then all 3 losses via split decision, which makes it even worse. So he gets into the UFC, fights Michel Prazeres. After that, Francisco Trinaldo. After that, Kevin Lee. Stylistically, the worst matchups you could possibly have for a guy like Jesse Ronson. And then he gets the boot from the UFC and has pretty much fought all over the world in the meantime. Has fought the toughest of competition as well too. He had a run in TKO where he captured their title as well, and then he went over to the PFL and ran into some killers there too. He was actually supposed to fight a guy named Carlos Silva, but that guy missed weight or something and had to pull out, and in steps Natan Schultz, who he won the PFL tournament as well too, so that just tells you alone. And his grappling is phenomenal too. So again, stylistically, probably one of the worst matchups you could possibly get if you're Jesse Ronson. Next fight, gets kneed and ground and pounded by Aleksekin, Nikolai Aleksekin, and PFL as well. Very, very unfortunate loss there. That was 2 in a row for him. And then he comes back in his neighborhood or his neck of the woods up here in Ontario, gets a win over Troy Lamson, who was on the Dana White's Looking for a Fight. And, what was pretty much the center of attention on one of the episodes. He ended up losing on that show, but here he is coming in against Jesse Ronson, and he lost via rear naked choke in the first round. Interesting fight where we did see slight improvements from Ronson. He did, stuff a couple takedowns, but I don't think that Troy Lamson is the level of Nicolas Dalby. With that said, I don't think that Nicolas Dalby is the level of Natan Schultz or Kevin Lee or Michel Prazeres. Like those guys, they're much better wrestlers in my opinion. Very, very tough fight for Ronson to come back to. Dalby is primarily a grappler. It's evident that he watches tape on his opponents, so he knows that, Jesse Ronson's only real way of winning this fight is pretty much outstriking him on the feet is grappling him. And another, caveat in this fight is the fact that it's up at welterweight. Jesse Ronson's normally a lightweight, and now he's coming in against a welterweight grappler. So I'm not sure how long Dalby is willing to swing on the feet for. Obviously, he's going to have to do that a little bit just to get Ronson not thinking that the takedown's coming immediately. But if Ronson can keep this fight on the feet, man, he could absolutely piece up Nicolas Dalby. The unfortunate part is there's just nothing on tape that we can truly see that Ronson has absolutely worked on that. And again, he did stuff a couple takedowns from Troy Lamson, but I think he's much lower level than Nicolas Dalby. And again, Dalby's a lot bigger too now. Dalby is decent on the feet, but he does get tagged and he does get hit a lot. But he has a ton of resilience. And the thing is, he has a very sneaky good record too. He's 18-3-1 coming into this fight. That's weird considering that he was cut from the UFC. I believe one of his losses, or he had a draw against Darren Till. Then he lost 3 straight. Zach Cummings, Peter Sobotta, and Carlo Pedersoli. Then he found himself on the Cage Warrior scene where he won a title and had a crazy fight with Ross Houston where they had to stop the fight due to the amount of blood in the cage. That was probably one of the craziest things and probably the most uncomfortable things I've ever seen in terms of watching these guys trying to grapple and just slipping and sliding all over the place and just seeing each other covered with blood. One of the craziest things we've ever seen. And then he comes back to the UFC. I believe it was in Denmark that he made his return. It was Denmark on the Hermansen and Cannonier card where he got a solid win over Alex Oliveira as a decent underdog too. I remember making a little bit of money on that fight because I did place a bet on him there. But this is stylistically a much better fight for him. Ronson just does not show what you really want to see in a guy that is a very good striker, but a very good or a very poor grappler. But the thing is, at minus 255, I don't feel comfortable playing Nicolas Dalby. You know what I mean? There is the chance that Ronson can catch him on the feet. Ronson is very well refined on the feet too. He has great head kicks. He has great combinations, decent movement. But if Dalby does trap him up against the cage, he will get him down, and he could probably ride out the position for a solid 3 rounds. I just don't feel comfortable playing Dalby at that line. If you gave me maybe minus 160, minus 150 or something like that, I would consider it a little bit more. But the line is a little bit too juiced, considering the discrepancy that they have on the feet. So I will take Dalby to win this fight. I think he's going to win by decision. It's unfortunate for Ronson, but this is his in back into the UFC. Now, hopefully his next fight, he can get it at lightweight, and hopefully the UFC will give him a gift this time around of potentially fighting another striker. You know what I mean? He's put on, tons of fun fights. I've worked on a couple of the fights that he had up here in Ontario, and man, one of the fights that really sticks out to me is his fight against Ryan Healy. That was one of the, I believe it was his second or third last fight before he initially made it to the UFC. Yeah, it was his second last fight before making it to the UFC. But man, that fight was a battle. Probably one of the craziest fights. The chin on Healy in that fight. That should have been a Ronson KO fight, but Healy's chin was just insane. Ryan Healy, obviously the brother of former UFC fighter Pat Healy. Both guys are tough as nails. But yeah, Jesse Ronson, great striker, poor grappler, which is going to be the downfall for him here. So I'll take Nicolas Dalby to win this fight by decision. Francisco Trinaldo versus Jai Herbert. We got minus 145 on Trinaldo, plus 125 on Herbert. And as this fight week's been progressing, we've been seeing this line slowly get closer and closer. And after running some of the tape, I kind of understand the reasoning as to why. I still believe that Trinaldo is rightfully the favorite. The guy packs a lot of power. He's quite precise with most of his strikes. It's crazy to think that he's in his 40s. I want to get the actual age correct. Yeah, he's 41. He'll be 42 in August. But the guy's still doing the damn thing, and his style is like very like slow and plodding, but he's very stalkerish in terms of how he's always like approaching his opponents, is kind of just walking them down, and he has the power to allow that to happen. You know what I mean? Most of these fighters, John McDessie being the last one, are very intimidated by this guy's power, and he's sharp with his strikes, great kicks, great knees, covers distance quite well too with his strikes. But in this fight with Herbert, he's going to have to worry a little bit more than just walking down his opponent. Herbert moves quite well, is a great striker himself as well, kicks very well too, does a good job of getting out of the way of most of his shots. His only loss is to Rhys McKee, who also makes his UFC debut earlier in this card. But I believe he's made a lot of adjustments since that fight. His striking has looked better and better each fight. I could absolutely see him go out there and outpoint Trinaldo. I could also see him potentially getting a stoppage too. The thing is, you guys know me in UFC debuters, unless it's somebody like a guy like Khamzat, Chimaev or something like that, I don't really try to, I use that as kind of like a deterrent or a negative aspect as the fact that they're making their UFC debut. The under 2.5, though, plus 155, is not that bad of a line considering that both of these guys are strikers. Trinaldo always throws with a lot of power in his hands, and he could absolutely catch Jai Herbert on the way in. I think that Herbert is just a little bit more well-rounded in being able to, strike without getting hit, with being able to just get in and out, land enough kicks to pretty much sway the judges. But man, Trinaldo always finds ways to squeak out victories. This fight was a little bit harder to cap, which is why I'm probably going to stay away from it from a betting perspective, especially with the line closing as much as it is. But with the pace and activity and the movement of Jai Herbert, it's kind of hard not to go with him, and especially with him having a plus money beside his name, you got to think that he's a little bit of the value here too. At a certain point, Francisco Trinaldo is going to have to start to slow down. Like, that's just fucking, the human body at 41, 42 years old. He's slowly going to start to lose a step or not be as sharp. And we don't know when that fight is actually going to be. But Jai Herbert has a good chance of, exploiting that a little bit. Again, being a good striker, managing distance well, kicking well too. As long as he can stay away from the big shots of Francisco Trinaldo, he should absolutely be able to come out with a victory here. So I'm going to go with Jai Herbert. I think he plays a super safe fight. Again, I did mention the under 2.5 at plus 155. At anything over plus 150 in a fight where there's two strikers and at least one of them having legit knockout power, I'll always entertain it. Not saying that I'll bet it, but it's something that just catches my eye and something that I want to bring to your attention as well too. But I do think the path to victory for Jai Herbert here is going to be going the decision, chipping away at Trinaldo for those 15 minutes. As long as he can stay away from those big shots of Trinaldo, he should have a good chance of winning the judge's decision here. So I will go with Jai Herbert to win this fight by decision, but I'm not super confident in it either. Khamzat Chimaev versus Rhys McKee. Almost fucked that one up. Minus 1,100 on Khamzat, plus 700 on McKee. and rightfully so. We all know what Khamzat's all about. We just saw him pretty much 2 events ago now, or maybe 3 events it's been. But went in there, absolutely steamrolled John Phillips, got the finish in under 1.5 rounds. And the 1.5 round prop right now is minus 205, and that's quite fitting. The fight doesn't go to decision, is minus 535, and then Chimaev inside the distance is minus 410. Makes absolute sense. Chimaev made his UFC debut at middleweight and went up against a pretty chunky and heavy John Phillips, somebody that obviously has more size than Rhys McKee. And the probably the most interesting part and the most shocking part was to find out that Khamzat is actually a welterweight and not a middleweight. He looked huge even at middleweight. Absolutely ragdolled John Phillips as well too. Say what you want about Phillips and his lack of grappling experience and grappling skills, but just to absolutely steamroll him the way that he did and pass the guard as many times as he did and absolutely just demolish him, it was very, very impressive on behalf of Khamzat Chimaev. Rhys McKee, on the other hand, is more of a striker, long, lanky kid, 10-2-1. I believe he does have a draw on his record. Yeah, 10-2-1. It's weird that his one draw was to Richie Smullen. And if most of you guys remember Richie Smullen, he had a pretty unfortunate run on The Ultimate Fighter where he lost his last fight, I believe, to Luis Pena. That was his one fight in the UFC, and then he got cut after that. But the guy's not that good. I was kind of surprised that he even made it on to The Ultimate Fighter, and he made it on The Ultimate Fighter right after the Rhys McKee fight. But Smullen, mainly a jiu-jitsu practitioner, comes into this fight. Now McKee, came out of that fight with, 5-1 record. His most recent one being a step up to welterweight, which seems to be the division that he wants to stay at now. The guy used to be a very thin 155er and, somehow made 155 on a regular basis. Now here he is at 170, but he's only one fight into it. And he's coming in against a guy that is just going to be one of the bigger welterweights for sure. And I'm surprised that he's able to make that quick transition from weighing in at middleweight to now at welterweight. I'm talking about Khamzat within a week and a half's time. I think he has a ton of potential, Khamzat, that is. The style here is perfect in terms of this McKee fight. Again, McKee primarily being a striker, doesn't have much to offer in terms of off of his back. The choke win that he got over Perry, Andre Goodwin, probably not the craziest choke out there and probably not the highest level of competition. His last 2 opponents alone, make that 3 opponents are, 26 and 18. Kind of a sketchy, salty record there. All those guys are, obviously not at the level of Khamzat. And then, Khamzat obviously is still inexperienced relatively, 7 wins now. But I think that the talent and skill that we see from him on a fight-to-fight basis is just ridiculous. He makes no qualms about it. He wants to go in there, take you down, and then either, sink in some sort of choke or just ground and pound your face through the canvas. He's going to have absolutely no trouble here doing that against Rhys McKee. And the main issue and the main concern for a lot of people is, okay, we know Khamzat's going to win, but is it going to be over 1.5 or under 1.5? Personally, I believe it's going to be under 1.5. If you go back and watch the Terry Brazier fight of Rhys McKee, you see how easy it is for Brazier to continuously take McKee down and continuously pass his guard. And yeah, he didn't get the finish, but if you give Khamzat those types of positions, he's probably going to get the finish, whether it's vicious ground and pound or a submission of some sort. He's going to get it. I have no doubt about it. I believe he'll get him down right off the bat within the first 15 to 20 seconds, and then just do work from there. Easily passing guard, raining down shots, raining down elbows, and it's going to be a quick night for Khamzat once again. And I wouldn't be surprised if they throw him in there once again, within the next month or so. I know this is the last event that they're doing at Fight Island, at least for July. And then they're back in Vegas. I'm not sure if Khamzat will be able to get over to Vegas to potentially fight at the Apex, but I know he's going to want to get in there quickly again after disposing of Rhys McKee pretty quickly. this is probably the toughest first fight you could ever have in the UFC. You know, you've dreamed of it for so long. You've fallen off the horse a couple times, gotten back on the horse, and you get the call to fight Khamzat Chimaev on super short notice. I know they released a video about McKee seeing that and hearing that from, I believe, the president of Cage Warriors. He's just so overwhelmed with the fact that he made it to the UFC and kind of just bypasses the part where he said, it's against Khamzat. He goes, all right, fuck, I'll take whatever it is to get to the UFC, secure a 3 or 4 fight deal, know that I'm going to be getting a fight after that for sure, and start to, grow within the UFC, start to get better against these higher levels of fighters. But yeah, Khamzat's probably not the guy that you wanted to see on the other end of the cage in your first fight in the UFC. So, easy win for Khamzat, in my opinion. I think he gets him down with relative ease and starts passing guard and raining down shots, opening up a submission of some sort. But it's going to be hard for me to see anybody defeating Chimaev, outside of the top 5. He's going to have a meteoric rise, but I do think that they should, slowly bring him along, start to, feed him a little bit of the UFC veterans at that 170-pound division, and then start to get him into the top 15, top 10, and so on and so forth. But no need to rush this guy. The kid's still young, only 7-0. Like I said, he's 26 years old. He has a solid 10 to 14 years if you wanted to still fight up into his 40s. I think with his style, his ability to take very minimal damage, that will definitely help in his longevity in his career. But I'm very, very high on Khamzat. Instead of playing him inside the distance, which is minus 410, I think the under 2.5 is probably the way to go. Ton of talent on this kid, ton of finishing instincts as well too, which really helps if you're looking to bet the inside the distance or unders or whatever it is in these Khamzat fights. But this is a perfect matchup for him to go out there, ragdoll a striker, a lanky striker, and that's another thing. I'm not 100% sure whether we're getting a 6'3" Rhys McKee, according to his last Cage Warriors fight, or a 6'1" McKee, according to his Tapology page. So we'll see what the metrics on the UFC says once they start to measure him out and get the tail of the tape out there for us. But once again, Khamzat Chimaev via first round TKO or submission. Not 100% sure. Let's see what the odds suggest that they believe he'll pull off. Actually, that's not even out yet. But Chimaev inside the distance is minus 410, so that makes a little bit of sense. So Chimaev inside the distance within 1 round, complete domination. Cowboy Alex Oliveira versus Peter Sobotta. We got minus 175 on Alex Oliveira and plus 155 on Peter Sobotta. And it feels like Peter Sobotta has been in the UFC forever, and rightfully so. His first UFC fight was way back in 2014. And he hasn't fought that much either. There's a couple of guys on the card that are kind of like that. Jay Collier being another one who's been in the UFC for a long time, but their resume is just kind of small in terms of actually being in the UFC. So Peter Sobotta actually has 6 fights in the UFC, going a total of 4-2. His 2 losses, the Kyle Noak one being a little bit sketchy just because I feel like he's a much better fighter than him. And then the Leon Edwards fight, he got knocked out with 1 second left in the fight, and Leon Edwards is one of the top contenders in the welterweight division, so it's not too bad of a loss for him. His wins have come over Pavel Pavluk, Stephen Kennedy, Nicolas Dalby, and Ben Saunders. Dalby probably being the best out of all of them, but I still feel like Peter Sobotta has a ton of skill and a ton of expertise to be very successful in this fight against Cowboy Oliveira. He's still only 33, which is still very good for him. He's still in his peak. He could still perform at a high level, whereas Alex Oliveira, 32, the one thing is I feel like we've already seen him peak. He has this wild, aggressive style, isn't super technical with many of his striking. Sometimes we see him bust out the capoeira where he starts doing this weird foot movement and try to throw his opponents off, but it's nothing super effective where he's able to get like finishes or anything crazy like that. Last time around that we saw him, he lost he won a split decision against Max Griffin, but we continue to see the deterioration of the Cowboy Oliveira skill set. And I think that Peter Sobotta can bring a very, very tough style of fight, and stylistically, again, I think it's a difficult fight for Cowboy Oliveira. So why he's a minus 175 favorite, I can't really say. One thing we've seen plague Cowboy throughout his career is his poor gas tank. Definitely in that third round, he always seems to slow down a little bit, and I think with the expertise and skill level of Peter Sobotta, from the striking end, I think his best asset is his grappling and his submission game. I think that could pose problems for Oliveira. I could absolutely see Sobotta going out there and taking Oliveira down, making it a grinding fight, and potentially submitting him later in the fight. And again, I think he's sufficient enough on the feet that he can hang with Cowboy there. And again, Cowboy's a little bit wild. He throws with a lot of power, and he is awkward just due to his frame. But I think that Sobotta, just being the more technical guy, obviously, again, better on the ground, I think, you got to favor the dog here. I expected the line to be a little bit closer, and I'm surprised that it's starting to widen a little bit. I do want to see what the line movement actually was. So Cowboy Oliveira opens up as a minus 180 favorite, and it's pretty much just gone up and down, and pretty much fizzled out at roughly minus 175. And I don't know if people are just not aware of what Peter Sobotta is capable of, but I think that he could definitely pose some problems here for Cowboy Oliveira. So I'll side with Peter Sobotta. I'll even say Sobotta by third round submission. But he is high level, man. He's just, the fact that he hasn't fought a lot is kind of why I believe he's flying under the radar for a lot of people. But I think he's very, very skilled. And Oliveira, again, just being the wild man that he is, he's a very beatable fighter. And we've seen, if you're losing decisions to Mike Perry, in my opinion, you're not really at the highest of levels. And Mike Perry, one-dimensional striker, likes to move forward and just likes to throw bombs. Peter Sobotta is a little bit more tactical than that, and I do expect him to throw in some takedowns here and there, which should help him ride out this fight and get him to that third round. Tire out Cowboy Oliveira enough as well to get that late submission stoppage. So I'm going to go with Peter Sobotta to win this fight by third round submission. I think he has some solid value at that plus 155 line that he's currently at. Gadzhimurad Antigulov versus Paul Craig. We got minus 125 for Paul Craig, plus 105 for Antigulov. But the line that I want to bring your attention to is the under 1.5. Currently roughly around minus 130, minus 125 at a couple places. But that's probably the line that you want to hone in on here. So let's start off with Paul Craig. He's coming off a split decision draw to Shogun Rua. That was back in November. And, he's been pretty much trading wins and losses since he's gotten into the UFC. But one thing that he's always bringing to the table is a firefight. And doesn't have any qualms about really, stepping into the fire, really trading with his opponents, whether it's grappling or striking or whatever it is. Obviously, his main go-to technique or his main go-to skill set is his jiu-jitsu and it is his grappling. But we have seen on numerous occasions where he doesn't mind trading on the feet. But this fight against Antigulov should be fun. For as long as Antigulov's gas tank can make it entertaining, it could definitely be a firefight. I expect Antigulov to pretty much, just as he does in all of his fights, desperately go for a takedown. Just try to get this fight to the ground. Even though Paul Craig is a solid jiu-jitsu player himself, I believe that Antigulov thinks his strength, his wrestling, and his own jiu-jitsu will be more than enough to submit and stop Paul Craig. Because all he ever has is like 4 to 5 minutes of gas, maybe even less than that, depending on the output, the offensive output from his opponent. And I believe from Paul Craig, we'll see in those clinch situations, I expect like within the first 30 seconds for this fight to be, up against the cage, Antigulov pushing Paul Craig up there, trying to work for a takedown. But I expect during that time for Paul Craig to be releasing all sorts of hell on Antigulov in that situation. And within the 3 or 4 minute mark, if Antigulov hasn't already finished Paul Craig, we're going to see Antigulov start to suck wind, to look like death, pretty much. That's always been his downfall, and it's hard to really, and give tips to a fighter on how to improve their cardio. It seems like fighters that just have shit cardio always have shit cardio. There are the exceptions. The one that really comes to mind for me is Darren Stewart. We've seen him have horrible cardio in the past, but as of late, we've seen him pick it up, and he looks even stronger in some third rounds than he has in the past. But this is Antigulov. I don't think we're going to see any difference from him. He has a very strong wrestling game. He's more often than not able to get his opponents to the ground, but whether he's able to keep them there is a different story. His level of competition hasn't been the greatest. He's only had 4 fights in the UFC. Marcos Rogerio de Lima easily guillotine choked him. That was probably one of the saddest guillotine chokes I've ever seen outside of the Joseph Duffy one that we just saw this past weekend. Joachim Christensen, horrible fighter. Rear naked choked him within 2 minutes. Ion Cutelaba, that was a fight where he got Cutelaba down a couple times, but Ion did a really good job of getting back to his feet. And anytime they were in the clinch position, like I said, up against the cage, Cutelaba was pretty much feeding him knees the entire time, and it was really taking it out of Antigulov. And I think that Paul Craig could be, capable of doing kind of the same thing, but has a much better jiu-jitsu game. So even if Antigulov gets him down after Antigulov has started to gas, we can see Paul Craig start to throw up submissions. We've seen him submit guys like Magomed Ankalaev off his back, Kennedy and Zechiku. And if you're talking about a guy that in Gadzimurad who just has horrible cardio issues, we could see Paul Craig absolutely take advantage of that. And we've seen Craig go a hard 3 rounds before and really put it on his opponents, but I don't think he's going to need 3. I don't even think he's going to need 2. I could see this fight just absolutely being done within the first round. It's tough to know, though. I could see Antigulov go out there, get the takedown, and maybe get like an arm triangle choke or something like that, or even a rear naked choke. But again, if he's going to be working hard to get that finish, and if he doesn't, Paul Craig, he's going to make him work. Even off of his back, Paul Craig is very, very offensive. So whether he's going to be throwing up arm bars, triangles, even cutting up onto Gulov off of his back, he's going to be making him work. And, I know that's Paul Craig's game. That's just how he fights. He's always a go fighter. And that's exactly what you need against a guy like Antigulov. So as long as you can stay away from getting ground and pounded, as long as you can stay away from getting submitted, Paul Craig could absolutely make Antigulov work here and then capitalize with some sort of finish. So I just don't know which side is going to get the finish, but I do know it's going to happen under 1.5 rounds. And I don't mind the price tag that they're giving out there. It might get a little bit more juice closer to fight time, but that -130 line is not that bad considering the style of both of these guys, but mainly the style of Antigulov. And he's kind of like my Nico Price. He's kind of like my Jillian Robertson. If you have your one ingredient of a guy that, the under more than likely will hit because of this one guy. But as long as you add the other side of the equation, which is the other fighter, and if they have a style to bring out that possible under hitting even more, I'm on board. So I think that Paul Craig is that perfect addition to the ingredient that Antigulov brings into this fight to result in a quick fight, not really like a 4 to 5 minute fight, no longer than a round and a half in my opinion. So I'll pick Craig to win by TKO or even submission. But I think the under 1.5 is probably where you guys should be looking at. So I'll take Paul Craig to win by late first round submission. Carla Esparza versus Marina Rodriguez. We got -180 on Marina and +160 on Carla Esparza. It seems like there's a lot of money starting to come in on Marina Rodriguez. And I believe the line initially opened at -185. For Marina, got up to roughly about -150, and then started to come back down to -180. So you see, as this fight week has begun, people are starting to believe in that striking of Marina Rodriguez a little bit more. So let's start off with Marina. 12-0-2, undefeated technically. She's had 2 draws, both in the UFC. One to Randa Marcos, and the other was her most recent fight against Cynthia Calvillo. And the fight before the Calvillo fight, she fought Tisha Torres, which is a fight where I actually bet Tisha Torres, thinking that she would have a little bit more ease getting Rodriguez down. In that fight, though, and as in subsequent fights for Tisha Torres, you see that she leans mainly on her striking and her speed and her in and out movement to really get the victory, especially in her last fight against Brianna Van Buren. And Marina Rodriguez, long, lengthy, a bigger girl for this division, has really good striking as well too. She's one of the taller women in the strawweight division at 5'6", and her reach as well, I believe, is 65 inches, and it gives a lot of women trouble in terms of like closing the distance, and especially when she gets the fighters into like clinch positions, her knees are very, very powerful and very strong. She has shades of Joanna Jędrzejczyk in her in terms of her striking. She's a mean woman, great knees, great kicks, solid hands. But one thing that she always tends to falter in and show flaws with is the grappling aspect. We saw Calvillo have success time and time again in terms of getting Rodriguez down. And obviously, in some of those situations, Rodriguez was able to find her way back to her feet. But the fact that she finds herself, in these clinch positions against the cage, getting pushed up against the cage, and some of these takedowns that don't even seem like the hardest to get, makes it harder for me to really be on the Rodriguez bandwagon in terms of wanting to bet her, especially at that minus 170, minus 180 mark that she's currently at. Obviously, in this matchup, she's going to have a huge striking advantage. Carla Esparza has made some improvements in her striking. In the last fight against Michelle Waterson, that was a fight where she didn't really need to lean on her grappling as much. And it could also in part do with Waterson's inactivity a little bit in that fight too. But Carla Esparza, whenever they were trading in the pocket, she was standing her ground and she was landing some good shots. Her kicks are looking better too. But we all know what her bread and butter is, and that's obviously her wrestling. And she would be absolutely, dog shit crazy if she neglected her wrestling in this fight against Marina. It's her clear path to victory, and we've seen again, time and time again, where the grappling has failed Rodriguez, even though she's technically undefeated. Again, a lot of her flaws are when the opponent really starts to initiate the grappling. And Cynthia Calvillo is a much better jiu-jitsu player than she is an actual wrestler, whereas I believe that Carla Esparza is probably the best wrestler that Marina has fought in the UFC. She's great at chain wrestling. She doesn't give up after her first attempt. If she fails on that first attempt, she continues to drive, whether it's pushing her opponent up to the cage or chaining in another takedown attempt right after that. She has really good timing in her takedowns. She will have to make up for the fact that she will be at a size disadvantage here. We got a solid 5-inch height advantage for Marina, as well as a 2-inch reach advantage. But it's going to come down to that could play a positive factor for her too. If you guys have been watching me for a while, something that I like to insinuate a lot when it comes to wrestlers is the fighter that normally has their hips lower on takedown attempts are more often than not successful with their takedowns. And obviously, being the shorter woman here, it'll be easier for her to get down on the double legs or on any of these takedowns. But also the thing is, she's going to have to be very wary about the knees coming up from Marina. Obviously, Marina is going to be training her takedown defense like no tomorrow, but I still don't think that's going to be enough to really deter Carla Esparza from completing those takedowns. My concern here is obviously going to be Carla being able to keep Marina down. I think she will, or at least long enough to at least secure 2 rounds. At the current odds, I do favor Carla Esparza here. I think that until we see Marina truly rectify and fix her grappling issues and takedown flaw or takedown defense, you have to back the grappler here, especially Carla being one of the stronger grapplers in this division. It's kind of nuts to me to think that Marina's line keeps getting steeper and steeper, because people are just super believing in her striking, and I do too. I think her striking's great, but one thing that she's going to have to do, and we saw it in the Alexa Grasso fight too. Grasso, she really centered or lowered her base of gravity in her striking attempts to kind of nullify the takedown attempts of Carla Esparza. Carla was still able to get her down, but I think that if Marina did that, that would kind of take away from her game, which is kind of playing the longer fighter, throwing her kicks out there. And that's another thing, you throw your kicks out there. Carla's pretty good at catching those kicks and turning them into takedowns. So it in Marina's best interest to go about it in a boxing approach, mainly using her hands. Throw a kick every now and then just to kind of throw Carla off. But if she uses her hands a little bit more, I think she'll be a little bit more successful. In the clinch exchanges, it will be a bit of a sweat for Carla Esparza to get these takedowns, because I do think that Marina's knees inside the clinch are very, very dangerous. But that, bringing the knee up gives the opportunity for a takedown for Carla, and I think she's going to be expecting those knees and kind of capitalize on the situations by getting the takedowns. I think that Rodriguez has a bright future. It's kind of surprising to me that she's 33 years old, but I think she has a solid future. And wow, Carla Esparza a year younger than her, which is a little crazy too. They're born in the same year. It just looks like Marina Rodriguez is 6 months older. But either way, getting back to the fight itself, I tend to favor grapplers over strikers. And obviously Marina has a high ceiling, but this would be the best test for her in terms of like testing out how good her takedown defense has gotten, because Carla Esparza is going to be relentless with those takedowns. And again, with her improvements in the striking realm, it will help her open up the striking game or the takedown game. But obviously she's going to be completely outgunned on the feet by Marina, so she shouldn't go out there thinking that she's fucking Evander Holyfield or something and try to box off Marina Rodriguez's face. Just stay on the feet enough to get Marina a little bit comfortable on the feet, and then either catch a kick or time a well placed takedown and really initiate that grappling, where I think that she'll have a huge advantage. And man, her submission defense has gotten really good too. Alexa Grasso had in a really tight armbar, and she was able to spin out of that very well. I got to side with the dog here. This fight should be lined a little bit closer. It should be, you could favor Marina a little bit, maybe minus 120, minus 130. But I think with the grappling edge that Carla Esparza here, that she has here, you got to side with her. You got to go with the grappler here. Again, high ceiling for Marina, but we still need to see some improvements from her in the grappling aspect before I can really back her, especially at that minus 180 line. So I'm going to go with Carla Esparza here to win by decision. I looked at the props, and I don't know if it's just best fight odds that's messing up right now, but at 5 dimes, we got plus 160 for Carla Esparza straight, and then plus 145 for Carla Esparza to win by decision. So there might be some fuckery going on with best fight odds right now. But I like Carla Esparza to win this fight. I don't think she wins it inside the distance. So if you want to get a little bit crazier, go ahead and bet that decision prop. But I do like Carla to win this fight. I'll say by decision. But a part of me kind of hopes that we see a much more improved Marina Rodriguez in terms of her grappling and her takedown defense. But with all the facts in front of me and going through the tape study, I got to go with Carla Esparza here to win this fight by decision. Alexander Gustafsson versus Fabricio Verdum. We got minus 350 on Gustafsson, who's making his heavyweight debut in the UFC. And we got plus 290 on Fabricio Verdum. Let's start off with Verdum. He's actually coming off a loss to a very surprising loss, actually, to Alexei Oleinik last time around. It seems like the ring rust really got to him. That was his first fight in 2 years and 2 months. Before that, he had lost to Alexander Volkov, and then he had this whole USADA issue. And if I'm not mistaken, he actually snitched on a couple fighters or doctors or whatever it was, because he managed to get his sentence reduced drastically, which allowed him to come back to the UFC. I remember when he did get initially popped for it, he was asking the UFC to release him so that he could go to another promotion, maybe over somewhere in Russia or something, and fight over there. But I don't know, maybe he worked out a deal with USADA or something, and usually that means that he gives them information regarding whether it's another fighter or another manufacturer or something like that. But either way, he did his time, came back, fought Alexei Oleinik, came in as a huge favorite, and even myself, I was very, very, I was very interested in betting Fabricio Verdum in that spot, but I just couldn't find myself to do it. Mix the layoff in with him fighting a guy like Alexei Oleinik, who, as old man as he is, he still goes out there and gets the job done. And that's exactly what he did against Fabrizio Verdum. It was a very close fight, split decision victory for Oleinik, but I thought he was very much deserving of that victory. We know what to expect with Verdum. Actually, kind of. We expected him to go out there and beat Oleinik, but he was not able to do that. But, solid striker. Obviously, his base is jiu-jitsu. He wants to get you to the ground and try to submit you. But I think he's going to have some trouble here with getting Gustafsson down. So this is Gustafsson's first fight up at heavyweight, but he's always been one of the bigger light heavyweights. And I don't think that, I have seen some pictures of him, during fight week now, where it looks like he's carrying good weight in a sense that he doesn't look like fucking Gian Vellante going to heavyweight. He is a bigger guy. He has a huge frame, so maybe his body is like pretty much used to being at this heavyweight frame and the stature, which should help him really acclimate to this division a little bit better. I think he's going to be, if he even gives us maybe like a half of what he used to show us at light heavyweight, he could definitely be in the top 5 of the heavyweight division. His striking is definitely up there with the best of them. His range management is really good too. It's going to be interesting to see how he deals with fighting guys that are roughly around the same size as him, if not bigger. But I think he'll definitely have the striking advantage here against Verdum. Good kicks, solid takedown defense too. With Verdum, we're seeing him just get it a little bit too overzealous with some of these positions. And even though Alexei Oleinik is a very high-level jiu-jitsu guy himself, we saw for Verdum making some very unfortunate mistakes. There was one time, I believe it was in the second round against Oleinik, where he took his back, but then he literally, dug in the hooks, but he was just far too high on the back, and then eventually Oleinik was able to shake him off. And knowing a guy like Verdum, you gotta think that he knew he was too high. So why continue to ride that position when you can just take one of the hooks out, readjust, and then get the hooks back when you're in a little bit better of a position? But he just seemed just really out of it. Did not look like the killer that we're used to seeing of Verdum. He's 42 years old, so he's getting up there in age. But with Gustafsson, he's a little bit of we just don't know really what to expect with him either. He's 33 years old, which is a bit of a surprise for me, considering that I thought that he was maybe around 36 or 37, especially with him recently declaring retirement after his, what was it? Yeah, it was after his Anthony Smith fight. Even in that fight, he just didn't seem like he was all there. That was his first fight after his second loss to John Jones. He took 6 months to come back into the cage, fight Anthony Smith in front of his hometown crowd, and just laid an egg. Like, even from the beginning face-offs, like right after Bruce Buffer introduced both of them, you can see when they did the face-off with the referee giving them instructions, like, he wouldn't even look at Anthony Smith. He was just kind of looking around. Anthony Smith was deadpan, staring him in the eyes, and we just saw Gustafsson just kind of like looking around. He just didn't seem like he was all there. It's kind of like he knew that he just didn't want to be there, and even knowing, like, with the loss that he was going to hang it up, because he pretty much announced retirement right after that fight. But here he is back, you know what I mean? Like, maybe he sees something at the heavyweight division. Stipe Miocic might be on the way out. Daniel Cormier might be on the way out. You got, Francis Ngannou up there, who might be a tough matchup for Gustafsson. But to be honest, if we see, again, half of or even 70% of the Gustafsson that we saw in that heavyweight during his peak days at heavyweight now, I might even take Gustafsson over Francis Ngannou. I mean, he's the much better striker. He holds his range very well, and if he's able to get out of that first round, he could give Francis Ngannou hell from distance. But with that said, he's fighting Verdum here. I just have too many questions about what type of Gustafsson we're going to see. This could be the best division for him too. I think that he could have a lot of success here. His striking is great. Takedown defense is great. His takedowns are great too if he ever wants to take his opponents down. I'm not sure if he wants to do that against a high-level jiu-jitsu guy with Verdum here, no matter how shitty Verdum has looked. But with that said, minus 350 on Gustafsson, I'm going to pass on that. Again, too many question marks. He is the better fighter. We don't know what the retirement or half retirement treated him like. It's going to be a solid year since he's been in the cage. The one line, actually, that I did like Had to get that yawn out. I apologize. The under 2.5 minus 125 is not that bad of a line. I could see either outcome here where we see like a rejuvenated Gustafsson that wants to go out there and just take Verdum out, or if Verdum somehow gets Gustafsson down, he pulls off some sort of submission. But the other side of it, I could also see, Gustafsson playing it safe, staying on the outside with his kicks. He did a lot of good work. As bad as he looked in the Anthony Smith fight, he still did decent work with his leg kicks. We could see that here against Verdum, maybe slow him down a little bit and then really start to open up his hands. But all in all, this fight's just a pass for me. The only one that I'm attracted to is the under 2.5, but even that, I just feel like it's a little bit sketchy. We don't know what we're going to get from either guy. This is a stay away fight, but for the purpose of this podcast, I'm going to go with Gustafsson by second round TKO. I think he does have a little bit more in the tank than Verdum does, and I'm surprised that Verdum is actually coming back into the cage this quickly after that loss to Oleinik. I believe that was in May. Was it May or June? Either way, it was UFC 249, the night that Justin Gaethje beat Tony Ferguson. But either way, I like Gustafsson here. Not enough to parlay him or bet him, to be honest. But I think he gets it done within the second round. And who knows what's going to happen for Verdum. But I hope we see a really good Gustafsson, because the heavyweight division definitely needs some help once Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic call it a career. And Gustafsson could be that next guy. So once again, Alexander Gustafsson to win this fight by second round TKO. Shogun Rua versus Rogerio Nogueira 3. Surprisingly enough, the UFC has decided to match these guys up once again. This is going to be their third fight, like I said. Shogun came away with the victory in both of the first fights, one of them happening in Pride, probably one of the greatest fights of all time, or at least, top 10, top 20 greatest fights of all time. And then the last time around, Shogun won at UFC 190 in a fight where early on he was in a little bit of trouble. It was weird because the combination that Nogueira landed on him didn't seem to land the hardest, but it just landed the second shot seemed to land right on the top of the head. So it may have, thrown off Shogun's equilibrium a little bit. Shogun was able to recover from that, ride out the rest of the round pretty much in the clinch position. And then in the second and third round, he really put it on Nogueira in terms of just taking him down, clinching up against him, really stealing the rounds from him so that Nogueira wasn't able to do much. I kind of expect the same fight this third time around, and I'm kind of surprised that they actually lined it, the total at 1.5 compared to the 2.5, considering both of their fights have gone to a decision. At this point in their career, neither of them have crazy knockout power. Their chins have obviously been very much tested by the young up-and-comers that they're fighting. But for some reason, Shogun's chin, it seemed shot way back in the day, way back in 2012, 2013. But here we are in 2020. He's riding a crazy streak right now. I think his only loss in the last little bit was Anthony Smith. So since the Ovin St. Preux loss, he's 4-1-1, which is insane. And that OSP loss was back in 2014. So since 2015, Shogun is 4-1-1 with wins over guys like Nogueira. He started this streak with Nogueira. Split decision over Corey Anderson. Finished Gian Vellante in the third round. Obviously got starched by Anthony Smith pretty quickly. And then finishes Tyson Pedro in the last round. And then gets a split draw against Paul Craig back in November of 2019. But yeah, they're both still slow. They don't have the craziest pop on their shots. Shogun, since his initial title run, he's really started to take up the game plan of more of a clinch heavy approach. He tries to overpower his opponents a little bit more. Really sticks with the knees to the thigh. It doesn't really seem like he goes out there to try and seek a finish or seek a brawl as much anymore. And that plays out for him. Again, this run that he's on is insane. Nogueira has had a little bit of a tougher of a run. Last time around, got stopped by Ryan Spann pretty easily. The fight before that, goes out there as a pretty hefty underdog against Sam Alvey, plus 300 underdog, and knocks him out in the second round. A lot of people thought that Sam Alvey was going to go in there and just absolutely starch him in that first round. That was not the case. Before that, lost to Ryan Bader. So it's obvious that Nogueira just has not been that busy that often, considering that Ryan Bader has had a handful of fights over at Bellator now. But yeah, since 2016, he's only had 3 fights, which is insane. Yeah, I expect this to be a sloppy fight. Again, I'm not really sure why they made this fight, other than the fact that both guys are old. Both guys are relatively at the same skill level. It makes no sense. Again, they're legends as well too, so maybe that's their drawing power is what they're kind of leaning on here. Even though we're getting like a really watered down version of both of them. Nogueira, 44 years old. Shogun, I believe, is close to his 40s, 38, so close enough. But yeah, I expect this fight to be a lot of like both of them being super tentative, maybe clinching up a lot, maybe a couple of takedowns here and there, but I don't expect an all-out war or anything like that, which is why I'm very comfortable with the over 1.5, which is roughly around minus 125. I think there's a solid amount of value there, as I don't think either guy is going to be going berserk mode or anything like that to go out there and get a finish. Yeah, I like in terms of which side I'm going with. I got to go with Shogun. Being 6 years younger, maybe not in fight years. Obviously, Nogueira has had a little bit more rest than Shogun over the past several years as well too. But his cardio is just not the greatest. Shogun, we've seen he's still in there with the younger guys, going a full 3 rounds, even finishing a couple guys late in the 3rd round. So you got to give the edge to Shogun here. But I don't feel comfortable playing Shogun, even at that minus 185-ish, minus 190 range that he's currently at. He should win this fight, and I think he's going to win by decision or maybe 3rd round stoppage. But I definitely expect this fight to go over the 1.5. Again, still mystified that they got this lined at 1.5 and not 2.5. But I think it's more so with Nogueira, being finished and finishing pretty early the last couple fights. But this is a different stylistic matchup compared to his last opponents. But yeah, I like Shogun to win this fight by decision or even 3rd round stoppage. And I, again, fully expect this fight to go over 1.5 rounds. Time for the main event. We got Robert the Reaper Whittaker coming in against Darren Till. Minus 120 currently on Robert Whittaker, plus 100 for Darren Till. This fight actually opened at minus 175 for Robert Whittaker, and the line has slowly and gradually gotten to a pick'em. It seems like it's slowly starting to part towards the Robert Whittaker side, and I believe rightfully so. So this is actually the first fight for Robert Whittaker since his fight against Israel Adesanya. He was scheduled to fight Jared Cannonier back in March. That fight fell through for undisclosed reasons. There were a lot of theories out there in terms of what was going on with Robert Whittaker. Dana even came out with something saying that, I understand that Whittaker pulled out of this fight and he's one of the greatest human beings, most selfless human beings I've ever heard. But no story really came out exactly what happened with Robert Whittaker. The only thing that came out near, and again, I believe somebody shot this down, but it was something to do with Robert Whittaker having to donate bone marrow or something for one of his children. No confirmation there. I'm not sure if he even addressed it or anything like that. But, at least here he is again, trying to get back to that title. And this is a solid fight against Darren Till, who's coming off a solid victory over Kelvin Gastelum. Both guys who, had most recently fought for a title. So it's a good way for Darren Till to, this will be his second fight at middleweight. It's a good way for him to really assert himself within that top 5, beating Kelvin Gastelum last time around. And now if he beats Robert Whittaker, he's pretty much next in line for a title shot. We know that Israel Adesanya is supposed to be fighting Paulo Costa later this year. I believe September-ish, UFC 252 or 253 is roughly what it's scheduled for. So, we'll get that figured out, and then I believe the winner of this fight will probably be next. I'm not 100% sure if Whittaker will have to fight at least one more person, but I think his run as middleweight champion was decisive enough for him to actually, to stake claim to another title shot even after just one win. Stylistically, this is a great fight. On first thought, you got to think that, the pick'em line is probably correct. But when you really start to break it down in terms of their striking techniques and the damage that Robert Whittaker is able to do with his combinations and how slick he is with his movement and the in and out nature of, kind of hitting and not getting hit. And obviously he's not like a Floyd Mayweather when it comes to that, but he's pretty good at his movement and getting out of big shots. He was rocked by Yoel Romero. Obviously Israel Adesanya finished him as well too. But if you watch those fights, especially the Adesanya fight, Adesanya is just another level of striker. There is no other fighter in the UFC that has the type of striking that Adesanya does. And even with the frame that he has, he moves so well. He covers distance well. He holds his range pretty well too. But Robert Whittaker was able to land a lot of good shots on Adesanya within within the 8 minutes as long as that fight actually went. Darren Till, his last fight against Kelvin Gastelum, we saw him kind of take a lot safer of an approach. He wasn't really going out there and gunslinging or anything like that. He was just waiting for his proper opportunities, waiting for the distance to be correct, land a couple shots, get in and out, and not really take too much from Kelvin Gastelum on the return. We know that Darren Till, obviously had a rough stretch at a certain point. So he had that title shot against Tyron Woodley in September of 2018, lost that fight, came back, faced Jorge Masvidal. That was the night that Masvidal's stardom just went through the roof. And then he came back and fought Kelvin Gastelum roughly 8 months after that. Watching the Masvidal fight, I believe technically Masvidal is a better striker than Robert Whittaker. But the way that he was able to close distance, most of Masvidal's shots were from like a switch stance position. So he would like switch stance with his first strike and then cover that distance and then come over with the power hand. I think Robert Whittaker does that pretty well too. And he's slightly bigger than Masvidal. You know what? I actually want to confirm that the metrics. We got 6 foot, 73.5 reach for Robert Whittaker. And we got 5'11", 73 reach for Masvidal, so slightly bigger, but Whittaker just holds that weight pretty well and that size really well too. I think that's kind of gonna catch Darren Till off guard, and I didn't really see anything from that Kelvin Gastelum fight that leads me to believe that Darren Till is a rejuvenated fighter or he's just that much better at middleweight now that he's not having to suck himself dry getting down to 170. I still think that Robert Whittaker is the better overall striker. Darren Till could possibly have some, power advantage here, but I could also see Robert Whittaker going out there and knocking Darren Till out too. The one thing that still rubs me the wrong way about Till is his fight against Tyron Woodley, where he threw pretty much no shots in that first round, and then in the second round, one of his first shots that he throws is a lead uppercut, which Tyron Woodley easily, counters with an overhand right, drops him, gets the fight to the ground, and we all know what happens after that. I can see him just making those types of mistakes against a guy like Robert Whittaker, and he's going to pay dearly for it. Like Darren Till is maybe a top 5 fighter, but when he fights more skilled strikers like a Robert Whittaker or an Israel Adesanya, he's going to have a lot of issues. I think this line is, close, is lined at what it's at because of the fact that he beat Kelvin Gastelum last time around. He came in as a plus 175 dog against Gastelum. And, he did go out there and get the victory. But, again, it didn't show me anything that's like, okay, Darren Till is a killer at middleweight. But Robert Whittaker is just a very, very tough stylistic matchup for him. Just strikes so much better. I believe he's faster, too. He'll be able to cover the range a lot better. He's very sneaky as well with when he brings up his high kicks, which might be able to catch Darren Till off guard. He throws it almost like it caught Adesanya a couple times too, which is very surprising. Adesanya, whenever it hit, he always like nodded his head or like shook his finger, saying no. But more often than not, you guys know that whenever a fighter does that landed and it was good enough. So I could definitely see something like that catching Darren Till. I think it's going to be on the blitzes here where Robert Whittaker will have the most success. He's just going to have to be very worrisome about the counters coming back his way. But I think that as long as his chin is good, I don't believe it's completely shot, even though that Israel Adesanya knocked him out pretty bad last time around. Adesanya is just such a precision striker, so much better than Darren Till, that I can believe that, Whittaker's chin is not shot. It's not gone. We need to pump our brakes on that narrative. I think that Robert Whittaker is still totally in this game. I think this is a very winnable fight for him. And if you're giving me pick'em odds, you kind of got to go with Robert Whittaker here. You know, I give him at least a 60 to 65% chance to winning this fight. And based on the implied odds, you know, that leaves some value on Whittaker here. So I do like Whittaker to win this fight. I think he's actually even going to knock out Darren Till probably in the third or fourth round once he really starts to get comfortable and really gets that rust off of him. He did fight, when was that Adesanya fight? I feel like it was October. Yeah, October 5th. So he's been off for, 9-ish months so far. Once he really gets in there and, you know, shakes off the cobwebs a bit, I think that he'll start to get back into his groove, and it's really going to throw Darren Till for a little bit of a loop. I don't think that Till will be able to be as, you know, cautious and strategic per se as he was as the Kelvin Gastelum fight, because I think Robert Whittaker does a lot better work with combinations and not just a one and done that Kelvin Gastelum is kind of like, you know, Kelvin Gastelum just mainly throws like I believe it's left hooks and right straights, or the opposite. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. But, you know, he's mainly a two combination striker, whereas Robert Whittaker is able to tie together way more combinations, which will throw off Darren Till on that third or fourth shot or that third or fourth strike, which should catch Darren Till. So I'm going with the third round finish for Robert Whittaker. I think we see him go back to his prime self. This will be a solid win for him, and hopefully another chance for him to get back to a title shot and possibly reclaim what is his. I think Adesanya will always have his number, but this should be a solid victory for Robert Whittaker. And yeah, I'll go with Whittaker with the third round stoppage here. And those are the breakdowns. Hope you guys enjoyed them. Solid card all around. 15 fights. Took me a long time to get this shit together, but I'm already looking forward to the next event. I'm going to have a couple breakdowns coming out on Friday. For those of you on the Patreon, you guys will start getting those breakdowns ASAP. And then I hope to release the next podcast by Wednesday, I'm hoping, at the latest, possibly Tuesday, but I can't promise anything. All right, appreciate you guys checking out the episode. Again, check out the Patreon, check out the tape index. As you guys already know, a very helpful tool for anybody that likes to do the research of their own. I got all the links in the description below, so make sure you guys check that out. And then lastly, just hit subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit subscribe. I'm trying to hit that 1,000 mark before the end of the summer, and I'm getting close there. You know what I mean? As I drop these podcasts, I develop more and more subscribers, and it's very, very helpful. I greatly appreciate it. And if I've helped you at all in the past with making any type of money, just hit subscribe. That's all I ask. All right. That's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next week for UFC Vegas something. I don't even know what the hashtag is now. They're done with Fight Island, or at least for now. They're going back to Vegas for August 1st, which is an event headlined by Edmund Shabazian versus Derek Brunson, which should be a great fight, and I can't wait to break down that fight for you guys. But yeah, see you guys next week. Good luck on your bets, and gamble responsibly.